Welcome back. Today, we're going to start off with a little story. So, a couple of weeks ago, as you guys know, we launched the podcast. And when we launched the podcast, we had a great podcast party, a great launch party. It was phenomenal. Had a couple hundred people show up. It was really great. Came and supported us. And one of these people who came and supported me was a super, super interesting person who I was like very, very adamant about, like, okay, I need to get this, this individual on the podcast. And then, life, gets in the way and this starts to happen and we're trying to schedule it out and we're trying to make it happen. And, my schedule's this and her schedule is that. So it just hadn't happened quite yet. And a couple of weeks ago, I'm down in Provincetown, Massachusetts on Cape Cod, a place that's very near and dear to my heart, Cape Cod. I was there integrating an experience. I had just lost my mom. She just passed away, and we had just had her services, and that's where I spent a lot of time with her. Was down there, so I went down there by myself, and it happened to also be my birthday that next day. So I'd gone to the beach and did my thing, and we've talked about it on the show before. I actually went to the beach, a place where I can do a thing that's near and dear to my heart, which is be able to take my clothes off and be able to do that in a place where it's allowed and free. And so I did that and was having a great day. And then I was, dancing at night. I was going to go out dancing. I was just by myself and I had this, unbelievable, I'm just dancing, having a blast. And then I see this group of people and they are having like the most fun that I've ever seen a group of like 8 people having together. And naturally, it's like, okay, you start to share that energy on the dance floor a little bit. They see me, see what I'm giving. I see what them, see what they're giving. It's, we like to call it a giddy up. It's really starting to happen there. And then organically, one of the ladies in the group, comes over, starts dancing with me, and a couple of guys come over, start dancing with me. They invite me into the group. And then like, we just get down for like an hour. Yeah. Like just organic dancing of like, this person's a stranger, but we can full body, yes, giddy up, let's go, dance with us, have fun. So I'm just dancing with, dancing with these people. And, about an hour into the dancing, they ask me who I am, what I'm about. And I tell them I'm, where I'm from. They say, holy shit, no way. We're from York, York, Maine, which is literally the couple of towns over. I'm like, okay, that's amazing. We go a little bit deeper into it. I tell her that I'm a podcaster who has a cannabis company or, that's surrounded around, a wellness company, trying to get people, health. And, this young lady then informs me that she's an oncology nurse and she's, so it's really, really just the vibes because my mom had passed away from cancer. So, all these things coming together. And then she says to me, you want to know what? It would be really great if you could have my sister on the podcast because she's into cannabis. She has a degree in cannabis and she's incredible. I said, is your sister Kelsey Cole? And yes, her sister was Kelsey Cole. I got to meet Courtney, and this was just a complete organic vibe that happened, and it was so wonderful. Now, Kelsey is the reason I wanted to have her originally on the show is because Kelsey is a 2020 graduate of UMaine, and she decided that she was going in dietetics. Yep, giddy up. Dietetics, and which I think is so fascinating coming from that background. She had a degree in dietetics, and she was looking for something to further expand her knowledge. She's a learner. She can't get enough of knowledge to share with people, and when she goes down that path, it's going to be fully sought out. We're going to learn it. Which I am I have those feelings too, that's how I do things. When it's a go, it's a giddy up. Yeah. In 2023, very recently, she graduated with a Master's of Science in Medical Cannabis, Science and Therapeutics. Yep. Okay, from the University of Maryland in Baltimore. Yep. And that's absolutely incredible. That she was able to do that. She's likely one of very few people who have this degree. She is a pioneer. That's who we have on the show. I could not be more happy to introduce my guest today, Kelsey Cole.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, heck yeah. I appreciate you taking the time as well. And, getting down here and it's funny how things organically happen like that, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it was meant to happen this way. I believe that.
It was. What when you woke up that morning and you saw the picture of me and Courtney, what did you think?
I had a good chuckle, first of all. My second thought was, oh gosh, I hope Courtney did not say anything embarrassing, which was confirmed that didn't happen. So she's an older sister, so I guess she's allowed to be that way.
Yes.
But no, I just thought to myself, like, what are the odds? It's characteristic of the cannabis community, firstly, to be that so like closely connected. But then just kind of characteristic of New England to like run into somebody. I know Courtney was like, oh, of course, my sister type of a vibe. But yeah, I was pretty stoked when I woke up and saw that. I was like, okay, I definitely have to get back in touch with Steve. I told Courtney I've encouraged her a lot to get back in touch with you. So
yeah,
see what happens.
Yeah, hell yeah. And I don't want to get too ahead of myself here.
Yeah.
But I think it would be really cool to eventually have both of you guys on the show.
Oh yeah,
and,
it'll be fun.
Yeah, and I actually know too. There's another little secret about you as well, that you're a twin.
I am a twin. I have a younger twin sister, as I told you before we started. Who's great. She works in social work. She's killing it, like absolutely killing it. She does things that Courtney and I talk about it all the time, like couldn't even imagine doing. And she has the compassion and the brain for it, and she kills it. So she'd be a good addition as well. But
yeah, it's really nice of you to talk about the baby of the family that way.
I mean, we got to give him something.
You got to give him something, right? The 3 minutes.
Oh yeah,
you got her, girl.
Oh yeah, always. I'll always be the middle child, happily.
Hell yeah. No, I think that would be. I can't wait to meet Lindsay. Is her name, right? And I can't wait to meet Lindsay as well. And I can't, too. Just a quick shout out to the Cole parents for obviously raising 3 incredible daughters who are really really impacting the community that they live in. I think that's incredible.
Yeah, they're the proud parents. So.
That's really good. It's like that's what it'll be. It'll be a podcast with the Coles, and a dinner evening with the Coles. We'll get off.
Well, I don't know if you want to have dinner with the Coles, but you could definitely get us to sit down and chat. We might not behave at dinner.
Okay, I hear that. I'm one of 5, and I'm right in the kind of in the middle, but more on the the baby side too. I have a younger sister. But that's, chaos, chaos, and everyone just trying to prove their point, and everyone trying to get and that's really great, because that's how you learn. It's how you grow. It's, you can scream and yell at your sibling, but they're still your sibling, and you got to love them the next day anyways. So,
oh, absolutely.
Teaches you how to kind of like, interact with people in a good way.
Oh yeah. I mean, you could keep up with our family for sure. My sister's boyfriend comes along. He doesn't get a word in. You could keep up though.
You're now Lindsay's boyfriend or Courtney's boyfriend?
Both.
Both, okay.
Yes, Jeff's been around for a while though, and he, you would get a word in for sure. They've learned to sit back.
Yeah, okay. That's you need that too. You need that, and that's my partner's really great at that too. Yeah, she's incredible at sitting back and just taking everything in, and both you need both things to the weaving of life.
Oh, yeah.
I call it the dance of life. You just dance by each other, and you do it. In a couple, and Jeff is a really awesome dude.
I was going to say, you got to meet Jeff down in P-Town.
Yeah, man. Wow. Like, what good energy, like a lot of times with me, because of the way that I dance and just me, whatever, a lot of men, a lot of times they, especially if they're like with their girlfriends, which I'm assuming that was the case, Yep. It was, it seemed that way from the get-go. And
yeah.
I confirmed that was the case for at least like 3 of the people there, I think all of them.
Yeah.
But it was like, for them to all welcome me in, like, that's the real giddy up, because like I'm not out here to try to impress anyone, or I'm not trying to get a lady or a man or anything like that. I'm out here to just live my life and feel good in my own body and dance. And like, who wants to do that with me? Anybody. And like, they truly, Jeff and the guys there, they knew that was the case. And let the story, the moral of the story there is like, let those experiences happen more, everybody.
Oh.
Don't be jealous, don't be scared, don't be afraid. Like, the only way is through. And it's like, it's really cool to meet a stranger and to have, to feel like family after only an hour or so.
Yeah.
To give yourself those experiences, sometimes you just gotta, stop thinking and get out of your own way.
Oh yeah. And that friend group is like so great about it. They've adopted Lindsay and I into their friend group a lot of the time. So we have a great time with them.
Yeah, heck yeah. I can't wait till all of us go dancing together. It's going to be a blast.
It's bound to happen eventually. It definitely will. And if it doesn't, you'll mistakenly run into one of us, and then we'll make it happen.
Yeah, right, exactly. The universe is already on the path. We're already heading that way 100%. So I think it's very cool that you decided like that you were going to, take this. You're from Maine, so like you'd seen the medical cannabis program growing, likely one of the best medical programs in the country.
Arguably, yeah.
Arguably, definitely, arguably. And like, just what made you make that choice, because it seems like, your older sister was a nurse. And, so my older brother was a pharmacist. That's what I decided to do, was to go into pharmacy. And it took me a little bit longer to get to the point to figure out that I was my own person and that I had other ideas of how to bring people wellness. And being comfortable with that, especially when it was something like opposite to what I learned, that cannabis was a Scheduled I drug, and that that means that there is no medicinal benefit. That's what they had tried to teach me, and just going through that process has been very eye-opening and fun and challenging and hard sometimes. But I'm just real excited to hear about your story as somebody who decided to go full go and full bore and to back it up with a degree.
Yeah, I started very similar to you. My older sister studied nutrition in college, and she took a liking to it. And when I figured out what I wanted to do in college, I started in an athletic training route. I always knew I wanted to be in some sort of health science field. I just didn't know exactly which one. I had my first ever college professor tell me that I was anal retentive for asking too many questions in my first athletic training class. So I said, yeah, this is not going to be for me, because try as I may, I couldn't have put up with her for 4 years, knowing how many classes I would have had to have with somebody that it just wasn't the learning environment that I thrived in. I'm a question person. I have a curious mind. A lot of the times I like to participate even if I'm not asking a question. So the second I got into that environment, I just knew it wasn't a right fit for me. Bounced into exercise science, kind of developed my further liking for the sciences through that. Then I'd taken a slight hiatus from the University of Maine, ended up back there as a sophomore and just had to pick a degree to go back into the college with. And I was like, you know what, Courtney studies nutrition. I think I could like nutrition. And sophomore year, I kind of jumped right into it, was really liking the core coursework. And then kind of as I started to get into my upper level undergraduate courses, I was just kind of like, I don't know if I want to do this forever, especially as the culture surrounding, or I guess diet culture was not starting to, because it's always been around, but like diet culture, in my opinion, is really in its peak right now because of social media, and everybody thinks that they know what they're talking about because they pick up a magazine or they read about a trend online or whatnot. So for me, I felt like I was kind of always going to be fighting for a little bit of validity in my field. And I didn't know if I wanted to like compete with people that thought that they knew what they were talking about based off of like what they read about a fad diet in a magazine. And so luck have it, the pandemic struck and I moved home in 2020, graduated, was bartending, kind of trying to figure out what I was doing. Had some things pop up where I started seeking out cannabis from a friend of mine. He was home growing. I used cannabis a little bit when I was in my undergrad, but nothing crazy. I'd always kind of, I had a little bit of a stigma towards it, and we talked about that. So I never really found use for it other than medicinally, or not medicinally, recreationally.
Yeah, you just thought it was for people who were getting high.
Yep.
Maybe being a little lazy.
Yeah. And I had a buddy that got it for me, really to help with my anxiety, more so to help with sleep at night. And then I kind of started to be like, okay, this is working for me. But as my mind always works, I wanted to know why it worked. And I wanted to know what could work better. I had a friend encourage me to get a medical card, opened me up to how easy or accessible it was in Maine. I don't like to say easy. I like accessible.
Yeah, accessible. Language matters.
Yeah. So Maine has a very accessible market, which is great. Hopped on a phone call with a practitioner, and they got me kind of hooked up with my card. I went into a shop for the first time, and I remember what I did is I shopped online. I bought a bunch of pre-rolls, and I smoked them all, and I wrote down how they made me feel, and then I went on and I searched what was in it, and then I said, okay, that's why I like that. And I'd kind of fallen into that habit a little bit. Until I stumbled upon the program. My dad was actually the one who stumbled upon it, which people have a good laugh about. My dad is my dad is as straight and narrow as they come when it comes to any of that. He's an Air Force guy through and through. So it was funny when he came and presented this to me and was like, I think that this is what you should do for a living. And I was like, I don't know, like, especially from the background, I was like, I don't know. And he was really, really adamant that it was something that I should do. And my mother was very adamant. She's like, I think that this is what you should do. And I was like, you know what? My mother would like to say I'm an impulsive person. I personally don't find myself to be that way. But I was like, you know what? I thought about it. And then I was like, you know what? We'll just do it. At one point, you kind of just have to you just kind of have to cut loose control a little bit, which is tricky for me. But I was like, let's just do it. If I hate it, then I can just be done with it. And I got into it and I was absolutely enamored by it. I mean, we study such a broad scope of topics that I was like, oh my God, I'm just going to like have my head in a book for 2 years, which was a great idea. A little bit of a daunting idea as well, because I was still working at the time, but I was really excited for it. So it kind of fell into my lap in a way that was unexpected. I had the background for it. I had the drive for that health and wellness industry. And then we spoke about it briefly. I really chose nutrition or stuck with nutrition till the end because I wanted people to be in a field of medicine, preventative medicine, maintenance medicine that they have 100% control over. And cannabis is a very similar industry in that manner where first thing I do when a patient comes into my shop is I ask them how they prefer to ingest something if they've never ingested it before or inhaled it before. And that just gives them a little bit of makes them more comfortable. They go, okay, you're not going to tell me what I should do. I'm going to tell you what I want to do, and we're going to meet in the middle when it comes to something that's going to make me feel better. Yeah. And they feel better. They're more likely to be compliant. They feel better knowing that they have a little bit of control when it comes to it, which I think is great. Some patients want you to just tell them, but a lot of patients want to have that say, and they want you to be like, you can choose this or you can choose that. Either one would be fantastic. What would make you more comfortable? And I liked that aspect of it. I felt like it mimicked nutrition a lot in that way. And then I mean, in my naive head at the time, I was like, oh, well, worst case scenario, I can always just make edibles because I have a food science and nutrition degree. So that was kind of always my fallback, was like, I guess I can just go make edibles if I don't end up wanting to be in the real, like, nitty gritty science part of it. So,
well, I think that you're, there's a couple of things I want to touch on there. The first being, I think that your parents being supportive of you and trying to help you find, your dad came to you with this, a guy who's not, not pro cannabis or wasn't pro cannabis beforehand. And he comes up and says, hey, Kelsey, I think this might be a great thing for you to do and to explore. And, your mom was behind it too. I think that a lot of people don't have that type of support. Yeah. And to have that, that's a giddy up.
Yeah. Sure.
So that's awesome. And I think that you, like, intuitively, knowing, like, that, kind of like figuring out what you want to do. You're a young lady, and we don't have to decide what we want to do right off. That's not the answer for anybody. We need to find out who we are. Mm-hmm. That's what the world is about. It's what this show is really about, is trying to figure out who you are, because we're all these super individual, unique people, and that's an incredible thing. And realizing that, maybe only like 5% of us get to realize that right now. And increasing that percentage is really what, the mission of the show is, and what I would hope the mission of, like, all communities are.
Yeah.
I think that the way that, you kind of came into cannabis, and knowing that at first it was like, this is something that's helping me personally, something that I didn't have a personal relationship with before. And I think that's how a lot of people come into it. It's how I kind of had a similar story, that it was recreational beforehand. And then I came to a spot in my life where, anxiety and needed help sleeping specifically. And, the cannabis is, maybe not completely long-term forever, but in the short term, it is a great, short-term to medium term, it is a great, great tool for helping you relax and helping you get some, close your eyes and rest a little bit.
Yeah.
So I love that you started going down the rabbit hole of what's in this and then, you decided, hey, I'm going to get the degree to back this up. And, the idea that preventative medicine is really the giddy up, is what we want people to focus on, because it's with your diet. I mean, you already said it's like your diet, these plants that we have, like having a personal relationship with all of these things, with wellness, also with movement, also with meditation.
Yeah.
Having a personal relationship with this stuff is the most important, because you can't go into somewhere and say like, hey, that's why like pharmacy is like it's just really odd, because different, everything is, we have these peer-reviewed, randomized, controlled trials that is, the gold standard of medicine. And it's like a lot of times it's the outcomes are already decided. You have such a small little window that you're trying to prove, and yeah, you might get outcomes, sure, but it's so much more personalized with that, personalized to who you are as a person, personalized to your genetics, your ethnicity, all these type of things that we need to pay more focus to, and like starts with food.
Yeah.
And then the next thing after that is these personalized medicines that you can use, cannabis, psilocybin, stuff that we can grow that's of the earth. So I think that's great that you like have that background of that view, because that's very much so how we view it here, is like it's this personal relationship that you have to develop with it. And that might be sometimes being told what, this might work for you, or this is what you want and this will be good. But like having that dialogue back and forth is really important.
Yeah. And I tell my patients a lot of the time too, like, I want them to do what I did. Like, obviously they have a little bit of a different starting point than I did, because I was doing a lot of it by myself. But like, I give my patients a start point and I say, I think that 1, 2, 3 products are going to work for you, or even just start with a single one out of the 3 that I list. Take stock of how you feel when you get home and you use this for whatever you might be using it for. If this doesn't work, try it again. If that doesn't work, come back. Unless it's causing you harm, don't try it again. If we're talking like a completely cannabis naive individual walks into the dispensary, usually, obviously, I always start by saying, welcome to the shop. Have you ever shopped with us before? If they haven't, we give them kind of a brief overview. Our shop space is really nice, very comfortable, lots of things to interact with. You can usually see all the edibles on the shelf. You can see a lot of the the raw cannabis products are all out on display for people to see. Makes it much easier to describe it to people that are not familiar with it. We deal with a lot of clientele over the age of 65, so it's much easier to show them what a dab is than explain to them what a dab is.
Yeah.
But if we're dealing with a completely cannabis naive individual, typically I'll greet them. I always try to build a nice rapport with them before they walk into the shop. If it's a repeat patient, if I can remember who they are, a lot of the time they remember who I am, so I try my best to remember who they are. Really good with faces, really bad with names.
Yeah.
Usually once we get talking, like, oh, I remember who you are, and I figure out I've nicknamed them in my head. It's like, you're the edible drink person. Like, I just remember people by the products that they purchase most of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. If they're completely new patient, I kind of ask them what they're comfortable with. Again, if they're a repeat patient, I ask them if they were comfortable with what they had the last time. If they're not, we're really lucky where I work. My boss keeps all the test results on hand. So usually if I don't know something off the top of my head is like a second alternative, I'll usually pull out our book of test results. I'll look at the terpene profile of a different strain if they prefer smoking or inhaling. I'll look at the cannabinoid profile of it to see if it's something that would be effective for them. I also try to look at the other products that we have in the shop that we could use to enhance them. We have a lot of isolates that people can kind of huck in with their flower and whatnot. And then I kind of just teach them how to use it, because a lot of these people, especially if they're cannabis naive, kind of have no idea where to start. I mean, you tell them to smoke a joint and they go, okay, like how do you light it? You know what I mean? Or how big of a puff do I take? And that's, again, another.
Do I hold it in my lungs?
Exactly.
Do I do this?
So a lot of the time I'm teaching people like a lot of the practices that they'll do, which is really fun too. But I'd say we deal with a lot of patients that deal with pain, whether it be inflammatory pain, neuropathic pain. We deal with a lot of like anxiety patients. In the winter, we deal with a little bit more seasonal depression patients. And then we obviously have like some outliers of people that are dealing with like stage 4 cancers and really extreme like neurodegenerative conditions and whatnot. So with those patients, a lot of the care that we give them is more comfort in maintenance. And when it comes to taking care of those patients, I personally let them have way more of a say in what it is we're doing. I usually just keep my mouth shut. And I'm like, I'll tell them what we have that I think might be good if they're open to hearing it, but usually they kind of have it set in their mind what it is that's going to make them feel better. and I let them go for it, because comfort's important. Comfort's essential. You know what I mean? So at that point, if we can't do anything to prevent it or even maintain the state of which their disease is at or their condition's at, then usually we're just like, what's going to make you comfortable? What's going to make you happy? When it comes to like our pain patients on a regular basis, our anxiety patients, like even our appetite stimulating patients, I love interacting with them. A lot of the pain patients, first thing I try to recommend is something non-intoxicating. Like I said, we deal with a population of 65 plus, and we have really great outcomes with that population a lot. And I think it's because, and this is another thing I struggle with in the industry, and obviously as time progresses, I hope to see it change. But you do have these people in the medical market, since it is so accessible, not always using it truly medicinally. So when I speak to people, I think sometimes they get frustrated with me, but I'll talk about like using this very intentionally, and they'll sometimes be like, yeah. But I try to make sure they know that the standpoint I'm coming from is from not just, I understand the importance of recreation when it comes to even a medicinal standpoint, you know what I mean? Like relaxing. And again, that comfort care is very important. So I have no problem with somebody coming in and telling me that they want to use a product to chill out at the end of the night. I'm not going to sit there and judge them for it.
Right. Personal growth's a real thing too. And so, creativity, just getting into a certain space, that's a giddy up.
But yeah, when it comes to like the medical patients, we see a lot of really effective treatments when it comes to our patients. And a lot of people are very patient with us, in understanding that like they're up until 3 years ago, or the graduating class of 2020 in my program, there was not a program that studied cannabis in the therapeutic sense. You know what I mean? So a lot of our patients are very patient in knowing that fact. And when they come back to us with with feedback on a recommendation that we made, a lot of the times it's either telling us that, oh my God, this was excellent. This changed my whole outlook. I had a woman come in last week, and she's one of my favorite patients because she does use things very, very intentionally, and she uses that language with me too, which I love to hear. And we got her on a new regimen, and I was actually about to head out the door, and she poked her head in the door, and she was just like, that's so incredible. I feel so much better. So those are the really satisfying people. I do love obviously seeing people on a regular basis that I'm like, okay, I was able to mitigate your pain with, we use a lot of topical solutions for pain and whatnot, and general gummies for all around generalized pain, but
non-intoxicating
as well.
So what are we looking to, target here?
Well, I'll say this. We use a lot of CBG, or I recommend a lot of CBG to people, especially when it comes to neuropathic pain. I'm recommending a lot of CBD.
CBG for neuropathic pain?
For neuropathic pain, CBD for inflammatory pain. I will try to recommend THC with CBD because a lot of the time my patients don't just fly for a CBD recommendation, which
of course.
The thing is I'm more than okay with recommending a little bit of THC in with it as well, because, well, the entourage effect, and sometimes that little bit of THC can really enhance the activity of the CBD, and then people go, oh, now it's working.
Yeah.
And you go, okay, good, stick with it.
Yeah, for sure. And
so
there's definitely something to that. I'm putting CBD all over my body. I've been putting it in my hair. I've been putting it out, for years and years and years. And I think, the THC, the entourage effect, if I do actually have I put it on my body for maintenance because I like the way what it does to my skin. I like what it does to my hair. Yeah. I think it's a great, it's a great use for it. Mm-hmm. But I think that if I actually have some pain, then that's when I will, rub some THC solve on there as well. And because they work differently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I've been using a lot of CBD, a lot of CBG. I have really bad knees and I've been running a lot. So I've been using that on my knees quite a lot.
Okay. Cool.
So it's not, I don't just exclusively recommend CBG for nerve pain, but it's one of those things, like if I'm having a conversation with people and I'm asking them about their pain, asking them to describe their pain, and they mention anything related to any sort of neuropathic pain or just general back pain, I'm always like, okay, let's go with some CBG, especially when it comes to my older patients. It's usually the first thing I recommend. And what's awesome is they're usually on board because they don't want to be feeling intoxicated either as they go around their house and just try to walk down the stairs. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. They're just trying to exist. Yeah. And the plant is, this plant is an incredible plant.
Yeah.
the entire body of it. And we haven't even discovered a lot of the stuff that will be beneficial for, you know, you're hearing all these new terms that are coming up in, you know, in the last couple of years, in the last 5 to 10 years, you know, unless somebody was a master grower, you know, and they really knew what, you know, what was going on. Like you said, the science didn't really exist. So we weren't talking about this at any university. There was no higher learning for it. So it was all being done by people who just were so incredibly authentically passionate about the plant because of what they saw and the outcomes, what they saw, what it was doing for, you know, for millennia, you know, in other places. And, you know, getting it to the point where people can, you know, use it more freely. And, you know, getting, you know, once we started to develop outcomes, I think that's when the opinion started to, like, you know, change a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And you and I spoke to this a little bit. I come from a very unique background when it comes to entering into the cannabis space. I was a big skeptic for a long time, and I think every single day I see examples of it, and I'm an example of it, where like the efficacy of the plant will overcome any bias that you've ever had about it. You can and you can hold a space where you acknowledge the like the adverse effects of the plant and the things that we don't know about it, but you can also accept that it's very effective for a lot of people. It's changed a lot of people's lives, and there's room for both of those things. They're not mutually exclusive, you know? So I think that, yeah, I just love seeing it every day. We spoke a little bit about my background the other day. And it's the thing that I like the most about the industry.
Is that growth, that
growth.
Room for growth, and that room for people to say like, hey, yeah, there's space for, and I'm really happy about that too, because like you said, a lot of the times it's strictly, you know, these are the positive outcomes and these are the negative outcomes. When you're talking about, you know, substances that, you know, used to be illicit.
Yep.
You know, it's, sure, there is space for the fact that it might make you, you know, feel a little weird, or, you know, you're not used to getting that high intoxicating feeling. But at the same time, you woke up the next day, you felt, you felt rested, and, you know, your knees felt better, and you were able to move through your day a little bit better. And there's so many more options that are becoming available that, you know, are non-intoxicating, and like just exploring it as much as possible, and not, you know, it's not letting it, you know, die out either, because it's really, you know, the commercialization of it is a good thing, because we need it to become an industry. We need people to have, you know, access to it, like you've been saying. That's the biggest thing about this, is access to these medicines. Mm-hmm. But it can, you know, we're just scratching the surface. Like, and I think that it would be, you know, I'd love to hear you speak about that, and like what you learned and what you can maybe see the plant going towards. Like, you know, where like it's there's so much that can be done, and like, you know, my brain's always swimming because of what it's done for me. Like, you know, I think the main reason, you know, my dad's bald, my brother's bald, you know, my whole family, and that the reason I think I have my hair still is because intentionally I use this in my hair, and I've been, you know, I also, you know, meditate on it and all this other stuff, and don't, you know, only wear specific hats, and there's a lot that goes into it, but, you know, cannabis is a huge part of it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no one's even talking about that. No one's talking that, you know, that this might be, you know, good for hair growth. And, you know, we could get into the weeds. You want to talk about the mechanism of action, I could get into that a little bit with you too, but, you know, that's not, people aren't quite there yet.
No.
You know, so it's like, okay, let's just try to use these products. Let's educate people if they want to hear it. Yep. And give them the space to know that, like, hey, you know, it takes, you know, regardless of your opinions on it, you know, it takes, you know, 60 to 90 days for an SSRI, you know, to work, you know, Prozac, Zoloft, these, you know, and work, quote, work, end quote, you know, like whether that's even working, you know, for it to take effect, it takes 60 to 90 days. Mm-hmm. And so like to tell somebody like, hey, you might have to mess around with this a little bit. You might have to deal with some of these adverse events, you know, what it may be, but those are, you know, controllable as long as you're in a safe space and you're, you know, with that, you know, you've taken the time to educate yourself on that, spoken to somebody like you about what those risks might be. Yeah.
And that's like one of the bigger things that it's something that I try to remember to do with my patients a lot, especially when it comes to people that actually come in seeking like medical advice, is emphasize not just the benefits of the plant, but also like any sort of adverse effects that can be experienced. I had a woman the other day come in like hell-bent on a CBD tincture, and the second I asked her, I said, well, is the person you're seeking this information for, are they on medications? You know what I mean? They were picking my brain about some CBD products, and I just said, are they on medications? And they said, well, yeah. And I go, okay, well, as a general rule of thumb, I tell my patients, if you're on medications, because I don't have enough experience to necessarily sit there, have them tell me medication, then know off the top of my head, like, oh, that's going to interact with it. That's going to cause this effect, So as a general rule of thumb, when it comes to my older patients, I always try to ask what medications that they're on, and then express to them, okay, well, if you're going to be utilizing these products, make sure that you're taking your cannabis to an hour and a half to 2 hours after you take your regular medications, if you're swallowing your medications.
Okay.
Just so that they understand the potential for polypharmacy interactions. Well, when I spoke to this woman, the second that came out of my mouth, she was like, oh, I think we'll try a topical. And I think the biggest thing my schooling taught me, to get back to kind of the focus of it, is there's a huge emphasis on like the patient care process that my degree program took, which was great. And now it's kind of ingrained to me. Like, anybody can kind of go on and read things, but we really learned in-depth how to build rapport with people, how to get them to tell you like what they really want to say about themselves. You know what I mean? Like, people they love to walk into my shop and go, I need help sleeping. And I go, okay, then I recommend something for sleep. And then they come back and they go, well, that didn't do anything for me. And they go, well, it's because it had no THC in it. I go, okay, well, you weren't looking for sleep. You were looking for potency. You just didn't say that correctly to me. So I recommended something different. And just my degree program really kind of helped me to become more comfortable, building rapport with people, asking them and knowing which questions that I need to ask in the short little bit of interaction that I have with them. And that's even like the cannabis aspect of it aside. We talked a lot about the patient care process in my degree program, and it was reiterated to us a lot. Like, make sure you're getting all the information about your patients. Make sure that you're including them in their decision making. Make sure you're telling them that they need to cue their doctor into what it is that they're doing.
Yeah.
Because I do tell people, I go, I'm not a doctor. I say, especially if somebody says, is there a doctor in the room? As if somebody's choking, do not yell, there's a doctor in the room, because I'm not one.
Right.
And so I say, I would prefer you cue your physician in on what it is that we're doing. You don't need to ask for their permission. You just need to inform them that that's something that they're doing, because if you have to take a trip to the hospital by yourself because you forgot what it was that I said to you, or you happen to take your medications too close and you didn't have a family member with you that knew what you took, it's a tricky situation once you get into the ER for them to know what to do with you. You know what I mean? If they don't know that you're intoxicated from cannabis.
It is tricky. And I will say, like, I appreciate what you're doing. I think that it's really great. And I think that that's a good idea to do that, so people have that personal relationship with it.
Yeah.
So that they say, okay, I know how my medicines make me feel, because some medications pharmaceuticals can change the way you feel. If it's a high blood pressure medication, it might, make you feel a little bit different after you take it, or, a lot of these, are going to make people, and they have a relationship with that, or at least they should.
Yeah.
It shouldn't just be, it should be intention. Why am I taking this medicine? It's because my blood pressure is high, or because my A1C is high because I have diabetes, and that's why I'm taking this medication. And they will feel a little different. So spacing it out is definitely a good thing.
Yeah.
I will also say, CBD, THC has, there's a thing in pharmacy, we talk about like the danger of drugs, we call it a therapeutic index.
Yeah.
And so like that is how dangerous the drug might be to the person, if they take a lot of it, or to, for polypharmacy interactions. And, cannabis is, compared to other drugs, it's very, very safe, like very safe. Like there's going to be, sure, there might be some interactions that happen, but not a lot of them, the ones that are going to make you go to the hospital are very few and far between, almost non-existent. Have you had a patient who's had to go to the ER because of cannabis?
None of our patients have. We've had some patients that have really bad reactions. And a lot of the time I'll tell my patients, especially if they're starting something new, like, try this on a day that you don't have to do anything, and make sure if you're doing it that you have somebody that knows you're doing it, where you might be like, hey, I'm kind of not sure what it is I'm doing today. Maybe you want to check in on me later. Obviously not for we're not worried about any sort of lethal outcomes or anything like that. But especially with us serving an older clientele, the worry is always there that, I don't know, somebody has an adverse reaction, gets dizzy, falls.
Fall risk.
That's huge, especially if they can't get to the phone to contact somebody. So we don't necessarily run into that on a regular basis. It's just something we always urge our patients about. We do get some older patients that come in talking about dizziness.
Yeah.
And that's usually when I'm like, well, when did you take your meds? When did you take your edible?
Yeah, that is the time to ask it, right? Then, because the medicine can have a very much so effect on, on their level, on their, if they're taking it for blood pressure, that maybe was why they got dizzy. And then they, they did cannabis, which is also going to make them, their blood pressure go in that direction a little bit as well. So that there's definitely like reasons for that happening. And I'm glad that that's the interaction you should be having. I'm glad that you're doing that.
Yeah. And it's one of the things that like, I am hoping to see change about the industry, and one of the things that like excited me about entering into the space. And the program is very, very, very broad with what we talked to, or what we touch on. Like the first class that we take is all about history, policy, culture, attitudes, and then it's followed up by like an introduction to pharmacology. They tried to attract adults from all over the world. We have people that are in my program from diverse backgrounds. I have a friend he lives down in Florida. He's a hand surgeon. I had a friend who had a psychology degree. I was with my nutrition degree. We have people that have been working in the space for years and years and years. Like my hand surgeon friend, he was the one that he entered the space because he knew that this would be a medicine he needed to utilize one day, and he wanted to be able to give that to his patients. So I say that because I met a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds, and the intent of the program, and not to mitigate what I got from it, because I got a lot from it, but the thing I wish that they did is I wish that they took kind of the different sectors of the cannabis space and they made concentrations of them, because I was taking like federal and state cannabis law courses, which are obviously important to me, but with my intentions, I obviously want to work in a more like educator type space, or in a dispensary space, you know what I mean? Where I'm dealing with more of the science. We have people in my program that are super interested in advocacy and policy making, and there were courses that we took that were really covered those. So like I got a very diverse education when it comes to cannabis. I studied a lot about the laws. I studied a lot about the attitudes. I studied a lot about the pharmacology, very basic pharmacology. We had spoken a little bit about it on the phone the other day. Like I wish that we had gone into a little bit more nitty gritty, which I think they could have achieved. I think in 5 years, firstly, and then I think secondly with kind of like putting us into different boxes where, okay, this is a science focus. This
different
is an educate. Yeah, just different tracks.
This is policy making track. This is the clinical educator track, and this is maybe the grower track.
Yeah, and then I think we would have been able to benefit a lot more from that, especially where like I sit in my dispensary space right now. I feel like I might have a little bit more of a comprehensive scope of everything. Not to sell myself short, we learned a lot. I wish that we had kind of had a little bit more of a focus on one thing versus another. But I also feel very like grateful that I got a really well-rounded education about it, because when I started it, I had an idea of what I wanted to do. It pretty well mimics what I want to do now, but I didn't hate the opportunity to learn about the different disciplines, because who knows, I could have really taken to one, So I don't necessarily, I'm not going to sit here and like get on a soapbox and say I hated the other courses that I took, because I really enjoyed them. Just being on the other side of it, knowing my goals, I wish that we had more of, more focuses, more like concentrations within our degree program, but that will be forthcoming. We had spoken a little bit about like the ability to educate and a lack of knowledge to even educate, you know what I mean? So that will change with the field evolving. Hopefully in the next 5 to 10 years, we'll see a little bit more of a focus within that program. So the people that are coming out of it are going into the advocacy space, going into the politics and lawmaking space, and then going into the science and therapeutic space with it. But we'll see.
Overall, though, it was a great program that gave you exposure to, a diverse group of people who were learning in a different way and trying to. Let me ask you, like, I think you're, I don't want to ask you. I think just maybe as somebody who's had a little bit more experience on this earth than you, I think is what the case is here, Kelsey.
Just a little bit.
You're going to have to learn. You're going to have to do it. You're going to have to be the one. you're going to have to get yourself back into that program or whatever program it may. You're telling me that your giddy up is to become a clinical educator and to let people know about this and to learn the science and to give the kids the information that might not quite be there yet, because it's not quite there yet, but we're starting to get to that point where we're starting to study it at a lot better level than we had federally ever before, because of access. Before it was all coming from one place in Mississippi. That's no longer happening. There's other places where we can get actual THC that's being used by the population, cannabis that's being used by the population into these tests, getting people into some of these, these trials that's, again, random control trials. Trials aren't the be all end all, but they can be good and they have value.
Yeah.
And so I think we'll be figuring that out. And is that something that you're telling me you might be interested in doing? Is being a person who learns this stuff. And I'm sitting here, and I'm thinking 2 years from now, we're putting your book right here in front, and it's
I'll sign the copy too,
Yeah, man,
I don't forget where it came from. I'm just kidding with you there, but
no, I love it. Sign away. That's what I'm saying though, because that's what I hear from you is that you maybe you could become this person because it is something that's needed, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily. I have an idea of what I want to do. I know that I touched on it a little bit at the beginning. I started in a program that I really thought I wanted to do. I really thought I wanted to be an athletic trainer. Don't get me wrong. When I stepped in that classroom and was spoken to in a manner that made me feel like my learning style was going to be kind of frowned upon in my degree field, I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. I don't need to be here, clearly. And so for me, I want to jump into a space where I'm able to educate people in a manner that's accessible to everybody. Again, that was a huge emphasis in my program was health literacy. We even talked about this in my nutrition undergrad a lot, the education surrounding nutrition. People think that everybody knows everything about nutrition. Everybody that enters the cannabis space assumes that everybody knows everything about cannabis. It's just not the case. So I would definitely like to see myself in an educator setting. I don't necessarily know, I'm not gonna confine me to what box that would end up being in, but do you mean in terms of the University of Maryland?
I mean anywhere. I mean, I think if you were going to be a person who wants to do this and educate people about the science and about what's going on, there's going to be the program in Maryland tells me that there's likely going to be more programs.
Oh, absolutely.
And that it's as we go, as federal legalization happens, as cannabis becomes more commercialized and more mainstream, and we learn more and more about it, more programs like this will.
Yeah.
So people will need to learn.
Yeah.
And you as a pioneer, one of 200 people who have ever gotten this degree from this university.
I'll say this, a couple more than that, but we're in the hundreds.
Okay, in the hundreds. Okay, okay, sorry, I apologize.
You're totally fine.
Okay, so in the hundreds, but that's that's incredible. And so this is something that is needed. Mm-hmm. You seem like a go-getter. So being a person who creates the information, as much as it's not out there, it's it's out there and it's accessible to be learned and to be constructed to be learned. So we can create these trials, and I don't know, maybe you might be that person.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, I'm not opposed to it. I know that I want to be in the space. I want to be an educator in the space. I don't necessarily know how that's going to look like, because I think as it exists right now, there's going to be more opportunities for the younger people. So I kind of like the space I'm in now, where I'm able to educate the people that are using cannabis. Obviously, I'm open to educating. Obviously, I'd love to educate clinicians as well who are working in the space now. But I think people, kids that are 18 right now, they kind of got it made, especially as it pertains to this cannabis industry. I don't necessarily feel like I need to teach them anything about cannabis that they're already not going to get to learn if they want to learn it. You know what I mean? When I was graduating high school, a program like this didn't even exist. And jobs in cannabis weren't talked about. So I think that the kids coming through the education system now are going to have more opportunities than I'm only 25, but more opportunities in education than I ever did when it comes to cannabis. So I want to educate people who need to utilize it. I think that clinicians need more education about it, because most people that you'll talk to will have a basic understanding of the endocannabinoid system, but they don't necessarily know how to talk to their patients about cannabis. They don't even know how to talk to their patients about a dispensary setting, and that's not to discredit physicians in any sort of a way. That's what I want to bring into that space is I sat down with my boss and we sat down with this awesome physician from York Hospital, and we talked to her stroke rehabilitation group about cannabis use. And we talked to them as simply as, when you walk into a dispensary with your medical card, this is what you do. Because there's even a lack of understanding as far as that's concerned in the whole experience. It's very nerve-wracking for people that are used to going to the pharmacist and getting their medication just given to them in a bag. It's very nerve-wracking to go to a dispensary for the first time and being told, pick out products that work for your pain. You know what I mean? So I definitely think that I want to focus on educating people that need the education for their field, that they would need to go back to school to get it. You know what I mean? Or learn it in like a continued education, like credit. Don't physicians need to do that?
Yeah,
that's gonna make me sound a little naive there, but
no, you don't sound naive. Physicians and any type of clinician always needs to do continuing education.
Yeah.
So it's something that someone with your degree should be doing.
So like, I'd love to do that. Create
the CEs then. Start doing it. You know what I'm saying? That's what I'm saying, is because you have this passion and you are so, you're so knowledgeable, and you have a leg up on everyone else because of this degree and because of the actual experience you're getting right now, that you could be this person. Yeah. You are this person. And I'm just trying to take the time here in the space here to let you know that you're fully capable of that.
And I appreciate that very much. Sometimes I need a little pick me up in that department. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, we all do, right? Like we all need a little like, hey, you can do it. One of the core values of Dr. BeeWell is like, be your colleague's hype man, be your friend's hype man, like bring everybody up. Just bring everybody up, because what you're saying, what you want to do is like a really, really important, really, really amazing but challenging thing that no one's really ever done before. It's starting to happen a little bit here and there, but and at the same time, people have been doing it forever. With not just with cannabis, but with pioneering into new spaces.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, like, I think that there's so much room for you to for you to become that person, and for there to become It's funny because like pharmacy is so, medicalized, it's so commercialized, it's so, you have the C's, same thing with a physician. And if this is going to go that way, we don't want it to become alcohol.
Yeah.
Like it becoming alcohol, and that's where the commercialization and the capitalization comes a little bit, because people want to make money. And, so it'd be really nice if some of these patients could come in and they get educated, and then when they go to pay, they can pull out their insurance card. They can use their FSA.
Yeah.
That would be really nice. And so keep driving education, and eventually the government won't be able to continue to close their eyes, and they'll have to say, well, this is producing outcomes, and we need to help people, get, have access to this and get access to this. And, I don't necessarily know if that's the answer. People, a lot of people I talk to say that is the answer. And having a third party coverage, I think that would be great. But I think that third party coverage and insurance is a fuck show right now as is. So we should probably just burn the whole system to the ground and do something better as a whole. But in the meantime, it wouldn't be a bad to be able to get people cannabis who needed it, and having them pay, especially when they're your other drugs are being subsidized. So why shouldn't this one be subsidized? It's actually showing outcomes. It's actually being helpful.
Yeah, I actually had a patient today. I said, "You want a receipt?" And she says, "Yeah, I do, because I'm saving all these and I'm taking them to the state of New Hampshire and I'm showing them how much my cannabis costs without insurance." That's what she said to me today. I was like, hell yeah.
That's how we make change.
Yep.
That's awesome that lady.
It was cool. I was like, you know what? Power to you. I was like, I think I'm going to start printing my receipts as well.
Yeah, exactly. And you want to know what? Now imagine this, right? Now imagine that's a medical shop where people have their medical card, and that it is a good thing potentially, because it gives them access to different stuff. So people who don't know, if you have a medical card, in an adult use shop in Maine, for instance, or any place, you're going to have a very strict cap on the amount of milligrams you can get. Yeah. And so for some, it might be 100 milligrams. That's usually what it is. In an edible, for instance.
Maine's a little crazy, I'll say. We have, there's some high dose edibles in the Maine medical market.
For medical, which is idiot, and that's the thing, is medical gives you access to that. So there's some people who, need higher doses, need higher milligrams. And so that's kind of a funky thing of how that's regulated. And I'm not, I don't know if people should even have to have a card to have, medical access, but maybe they should, it's really, and I probably should get pretty clear on these things.
Yeah.
but it's something I want to discuss because it's, the medical card's good. It gives people access to these higher doses, gives people access to people like you, but it's also a barrier. It's also a barrier that someone comes into your shop and says, hey, I don't have a medical card. And like, yeah, you might try to get them set up for a medical card and get up, but then they go, really what you're going to say is if you need help today, there's an adult use shop down the street. You can go there now. All you need to do is be over 21 and you can do 21, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 21. And so you can go over there and you can do that.
Yeah.
And then they're going to spend double the amount of money. They're going to, maybe not get the same type of interaction that you would have gotten there because they're not, they're not growing or doing for medical outcomes over there.
Yep.
That kind of sucks.
Yeah, we do run into that a lot. Luckily in Maine, it's again, back to that accessibility standpoint, like it's very, very accessible in the state of Maine. We have patients. It's really like the New Hampshire patients that we wish it was a little bit better for you because I had a gentleman last week who I was like, hey, your card's about to be expired in 2 weeks. And he didn't know medical cards expired. And he's from the state of New Hampshire. And it sometimes takes like 3 months for them to get you your card. Like we have a lot of patients that like, will go, oh, where did they go? And then we're like, oh, and then we're like, they're from the state of New Hampshire. Their ID must have run out and they must not have gotten the paperwork figured out beforehand. Whereas in the state of Maine, we're lucky that it's so accessible. We have websites like Cheap Med Cards Maine and LeafWell, and then your physician as a means to get a med card. And I tell my patients all the time because some of them will come in so distraught and they'll say to me, well, my card's about to expire and my physician changed over and I don't know what I'm going to do. And I say to them this, I go, it sucks that you even have to pay for this medical card. I said, but log on to Cheap Med Cards Maine. We get them all set up. And they go, well, that sounds fake. And I go, I know. I said, but it's not. It's real. I've got my med card off of there. And I always tell them, because they always get worried, well, what if I pay and they tell me no? And I go, well, if they tell you no, they're telling you no for a good reason. But more likely than not, they are not going to be telling you no because you're dealing with physicians who are actually, their job is to help you get certified for our medical cannabis program. And then in Maine, especially from Cheap Med Cards, they will send you a medical card in your email inbox within 24 to 48 hours. So we tell our patients, especially the ones that come in from Maine, we hand them a card. It has a QR code because we don't have the means to give them cards at our shop. We give them a QR code. We just say to them, it would be really worth it if you could get your medical card. You go to this website, you follow these instructions, you'll get on with the physician. You could have an appointment as early as today, and you could have your medical card in your inbox within 24 to 48 hours, and you can actually be shopping pretty well as soon as you get that digital copy. You know what I mean? So it's nice in a market like Maine, but not everybody is like Maine. It's the point I made about New Hampshire. Like I always feel so bad when my New Hampshire patients come in and their cards are close to expiring or have expired because they have such a hard time getting their cards, which we've heard from them is starting to improve. I think New Hampshire is starting to certify people for 3 years. So so once they get their card, they're not really going to have to worry about it. They'd have to worry sooner than they would their driver's license, but not every single year are you having to keep up with it. So that makes it easy. But yeah, I don't know that I agree that people need to have a card, but I think where at least I am in Maine, and obviously like my goal is to see this happen all around the country. I think that everybody that wants to have access to medical cannabis should be able to have access to medical cannabis. That's a given. But if I'm talking about just my local community, like luckily Maine has such an accessible market that like the people that do want to have med cards are not having problems getting med cards typically, which is really great. And so we do urge those people that come in, they don't know they don't know the rules in Maine. They don't know that you need a medical card to shop at our shop. We will encourage them, help them get their med card. And if not for the medicinal aspects of shopping in a medical shop, if for the price aspect of it, just we tell them we're like, even like you will just save so much money, whether you shop with us or you shop with any other medical shop in the area, you will save money. And that's one thing that kind of gets through to people like, okay, there's one thing that everybody can agree on. It's financial stuff. Yeah. As we've learned in this country. But yeah, so we get a lot of medical patients. We help a lot of people get cards. It's definitely a system that I'd like to see outlawed, but as it exists in my local community, it's very easy and accessible. So I hope to see that continue for other states. If the program in and of itself isn't dissolved, I'd love to see other programs kind of develop what Maine has, where it's up to the discretion of a physician along with this list of conditions that could qualify you. Massachusetts is very similar to that.
Have you ever heard of anybody who's been denied a medical card?
I had a friend who was denied a medical card. This was I'd say maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and they were denied it because the first question they were asked was, "Why are you trying to get a medical card?" And they said depression. So they had gotten turned down for depression. I don't know if it was just the physician that they happened to be meeting with that day, or maybe they were concerned about like depression in association with like substance abuse. But
sounds like something that cannabis is routinely used for and helpful for.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that was just a physician. One of the physicians who certified it that day was having a tough time.
And I don't know what avenue they had gone through, but yeah, I mean, I try to tell my patients all the time, because knock on wood, up until now, I haven't had a patient that's come in and told me that the sites that I've sent them to help them get their medical cannabis certification, that they've been declined. A lot of the time we see them in a couple days and they have a big cheeky grin on their face and they show us their card and they go, "Look, I got it. And they're so stoked to show us, and we get them all set up, and
which is great. You get them set up, you give them better access, cheaper prices, and then you're there. It's just wonky. It's wonky. I think I agree with you. It should probably be outlawed.
Yeah.
But then this is another thing that's really challenging, right? And I have a lot of friends in both spaces. I'm a part of both spaces. I'm in both markets. The medical community, the reason why adult use costs so much more is because they have to do seed to sale, tracking and all these other things, a little bit more overhead with their shops and just, things tax, that's really what it comes down to. The cannabis that's being grown medically, it's not worse. These people aren't doing worse things, and, it might not all be tested, but I don't know if doing it and regulating it so heavily where we're testing it, it's kind of nice that it organically exists like this, where people can go and they can trust their local shop and they can know that they're getting good medicine. And a lot of these shops are testing anyways. The shops that are good, like you said, you had access to all this stuff because the shops that are good, they are testing anyways.
Yeah.
So it's just like making it this requirement and to do it through this, the specific metric system. It's okay. I think that there's benefit to it. I don't really know what's going to happen or what the true answer is. I just know that I want people to have better access to the plant, and whatever that may be is probably how we should go about it.
Yeah, I almost think I think sometimes that a better system, more than medical versus recreational, might almost be as opposed to separating the people, maybe separate the products. You know what I mean? I definitely have products that the way that I speak about them to people, and we brushed upon this as well. I have products that I use for relaxation, for recreation. I also have products that I use for my anxiety. I have products that I use for my sleep. Obviously, not everybody's perfect, but I try my very best to make sure that I don't mix the two, because, if I'm using a distillate edible to help me go to sleep, I'm usually wicked overstimulated. And that's great when I want to sit on my couch and watch a movie with my friends. But it's really horrible when I'm up at 2 a.m. and every time I close my eyes, I'm having a weird dream, you know what I mean? And then waking up 20 minutes later. So I try to be very intentional with how I consume the products. And I try to make sure that the ones I'm using for more, what could be perceived as more recreational uses are one product. And the products that I'm using for my medical uses are different products. Because the second I start to blur those areas, I lose sleep. I am anxious at work, and it's not good. So I almost think that maybe there's not going to be a perfect solution to how this ever gets figured out. There's going to be a kink in the system.
Personal relationship.
Yeah, whether we think about it for 10 years or 20 years or 5 years or 2 years, you know what I mean? Whether we figure out how we're going to make this more accessible to people, there's always going to be a shortcoming. But I almost think that maybe if we were to separate the products that people use on, but then that almost contradicts the point that I made earlier, where I'm I want it to be accessible to people. I want people to be able to choose what they want to do. So it's, again, there's there's no scenario in which like I feel like people aren't going to be contradicting themselves in some way.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean? Because if you want accessibility but you want standardization, you kind of get screwed with the standardization or the accessibility if you standardize it in vice versa. So,
regulating it.
It just,
when you regulate it, you lose that freedom, you know, because you want it to be safe. But is it already safe? You know, you know what's going on.
I'm going to be very interested to see how it ends up like unfolding. That's kind of why it's another reason why I'm more interested in the educational space of it, is because like, and most people that know me, like I'm not a get into it politics type of person. So I'm all for advocating for my patients. Comes to that, I might just let people who kind of know what they're talking about when it comes to policy get their feet a little.
The people who are on the policy track.
They want to ask me how efficacious the plan is. They can come in, they can ask me. But when it comes to the actual nitty gritty of how they're going to roll out, like the medical going forward or the adult use going forward, like
talk to somebody in my program. Yeah, I talked to my friend.
Exactly. Talk to somebody else who's in that space with that intention.
Yeah,
because it's not me.
Right. Okay. Cool.
So, and I'm obviously interested in seeing it change, but I don't necessarily think I don't have the type of brain to sit down and educate myself in that sense enough to sit there and like get into it with somebody. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Because that's not what I care about. But like I told you the other day, I'll sit and I'll get into it with my twin sister about cannabis and psychosis. So.
Yeah,
I can get behind that, but
yeah, well, that's a medical outcome, like you're saying, and so now you say you're talking about this is something I'm very near and dear to my heart. I'm curious about what your opinion is on it, and so Dr. BeeWell honey, so like right now, when I got into this, I saw the current state of edibles, I saw what it looked like, and I didn't think it was very good. I saw that people were strictly just using distillate, and that they were infusing gummies and chocolate. Yeah. And, some drinks had started to come on board.
Yeah.
I'd seen that, but I was curious as to why, I think that the vehicle matters. How you're getting your cannabis matters very much so, especially somebody who comes from a dietetic background.
Yeah.
So I with the honey, I made sure that the way that we went about it was that it was always going to be, a real product, natural, local honey from, sourced from the area where it's being, presented. The cannabis is a full spectrum cannabis oil that's giving you all, everything possible, within the plant that you can get from doing an extraction process like that. And then infusing that in a way that's also not degrading either the honey or the cannabis oil in any way. That was like super important to me. So I think that the industry is going a little bit more towards that way. Yeah. But I'm just curious to what, if somebody comes into your shop and they just, the gummies and chocolate, that's kind of where we're at. And it's like, wouldn't it be better if they could, have a teaspoon of honey with their tea?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we see it a lot with our patients, and some people like are really into the edibles. And I think as long as you're consuming what you need to, again, consume it in the way that you want from like a dietetic standpoint of things. I would like to see it steer away from like the gummies. I wouldn't necessarily say the chocolates because I like the chocolates for sleep. Maybe like more towards the dark chocolate.
Yeah.
Stay away from.
Well, the vehicle matters.
Well, exactly.
Our bodies have been processing chocolate for millennia.
Yep.
So when you add a little bit of cannabis into the chocolate, it says, "Oh, I know what to do with this. I know what to do with this. Let's do it." So like that's not bad, but. Taking a processed sugar, which is that is what it is. Mm-hmm. Versus honey, which is a non-processed sugar, it's a real sugar. Mm-hmm. That might be a little bit different at bedtime.
Yeah.
So if it's working for you, it's working for you, and that's giddy up.
Yep.
But maybe, and that's because it's been happening in our systems forever. We know how to process. The gummies. Guess what, guys? We haven't been processing gummies for as long. We haven't been getting this type of candy for as long. Maybe 100, 150 years, opposed to thousands of years we've been consuming chocolate. Mm-hmm. So I just am so passionate about this, and I'm specifically was the way it would make me feel. Like I was getting edibles and I was using it. This isn't any good. This isn't it's okay. It's helping me a little bit, but I know, like you, I know there's something more. I know there's something better, and I had to take that real deep dive into it and got passionate about it and created this.
Yeah. And I definitely see, I can see people starting to move towards it. We're seeing a lot more vendors like making tablets and capsules and whatnot. And so, and I see a lot of patients coming in, they're using a lot of tinctures, and they're using tinctures orally. So, and I tell people that all the time. I say, I recommend tinctures a lot to people that are willing to listen to me talk about tinctures, because again, you see a package with like a really good looking gummy on the outside, and of course you want that over this oil that I'm telling you that you're gonna leave in your mouth, you know what I mean, or swallow or consume it in whatever way you want to consume it. But anybody that listens to me about the tinctures, I always get on about the tinctures, because I'm like, why wouldn't you buy this product? It's basically like, it's like buying 2-in-1 shampoo, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, you can swallow this and it acts like an edible. You can drop it under your tongue and it acts like a tincture. And then you can put it on, again, whatever vehicle you want. I have people that mix it in with drinks when they're around their friends.
Yeah.
And they use it in for relaxation purposes, and they kind of use it as a substitute for alcohol. I see that plenty. But I definitely see people moving out and away from the gummies, or we hear it a lot. People asking us like, oh, like, and especially the issues that people have in the American diet. We consume so much sugar in the American diet, and you see it. Like, my mom used to say it when we were kids, like, we'd be complaining about having bad skin, and she'd be like, well, it's because you're eating like crap this week. And we would never want to hear it, but she would say, what you put on the inside comes out on the outside. So if your body's not liking what you're putting into it, it's going to take it out on you. You know what I mean? So, and we have a couple of patients that come in and they, they're not the majority of patients, but we do have patients that come in and they are seeking, whether it's for diabetes, you know, you don't want to be, if you need 50 milligrams of an edible per se, and they're dosed at 5 milligrams a piece, and you're a diabetic, you're not going to sit there and crush 10 gummies, you know what I mean? So we definitely see the need for it. I definitely am seeing more products that are oriented towards like, how can we give you cannabis without the sugar? Definitely see plenty that are definitely like sour candies and different funky fun products. That again, I think that goes to that conversation where we were having earlier, where I said, should we divide people or should we divide products? You know what I mean? Where you can have a 10 milligram edible, but if we're in the medicinal space, this might be a capsule that's a full spectrum capsule. Whereas if it's in the adult use space, it's a 10 milligram distillate nerd rope candy. You know what I mean? And you're understanding and separating the two products so that people can almost instinctually use them intentionally.
It would, you know, as much as I'm trying to think of like all the hoops that would need to be jumped through to make that happen, or to see if it would be possible. But the end outcome, what you're saying, people would 100% prefer for the medicinal. It's been taking capsules and tinctures and stuff like that forever. So like getting away from the food base, you know, that type of deal, I think would be beneficial. But at the same time, you know, if somebody likes to take their honey and they're in the medicinal space, you know, they should be able to take their honey that way. Yeah. So it's tough. It's so, it is, you know, and I hope that it just becomes, you know, I hope that everyone kind of gets out of their own way. The money interests aren't too, you know, tight on it. And we're really able to get people access that they need. And, you know, really start to decrease the, you know, the stigma that still exists around it.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like, you know, when, you know, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, whenever, when I don't know how long ago it was, but when I started to use cannabis personally, I remember how afraid I was, you know, how afraid I was to even share it with people and to share it that I was using it medicinally to help me sleep and stuff. And, you know, now we do a podcast about it.
Yeah.
You know?
I remember my friends who was getting me some home grow stuff. He had bought me, I remember he bought me a vape from a recreational shop in Massachusetts, and he brought it up to me when I was a senior in college because I was having trouble sleeping. And I remember I called him on the phone and asked him to teach me how to use a vape. And I sat there and I probably stared at it for about 20 minutes because I was afraid this was going to make my head explode. Like, so they're scary. It's scary to use the products, and it's, I like that the cannabis space is getting safer in terms of like letting people know that like, and I tell people too, like, again, like I said earlier, I tell people like, make sure if you're using a product that you never have, and maybe you're like, you don't know how you're going to respond to it, maybe try it on a day that you don't have anything to really do. And then I'll say, like, do it in a safe space, do it around somebody that you're comfortable with, again, because it can be daunting for people and they don't know how they're going to react to it. Like, and it can be scary because I think about, again, a lot of our patients being being older people. Like, they come from they have such a stigma about it, and it's a war on drugs stigma. It's not like when I grew up and we went through the DARE program. It's like people were just like, marijuana is a gateway drug and BHO is going to kill you and like all that. Like they grew up with real fear surrounding it.
Yeah, people going to jail for a long time because they were involved in it.
Yeah, and so like those are the people that like I personally try to take a little bit of like extra care with, and like sometimes we'll literally be like, it's all good, we got you. Like we got you, we're going to teach you how to do this, and I don't care if we have to sit here for 30 minutes and do it, you know. And I think that's the nice thing about the space is a lot of people are willing to talk about it. I mean, you and I are sitting here talking about it today, which is awesome. And I just hope that more people continue to, because it's going to be less scary for people. It's going to be, I don't want to say more appealing to people because I don't necessarily know if that's the goal, but if we're talking about plant medicine as a whole, it's going to attract people to plant medicine as a whole.
Yeah, it's already done that. Cannabis paved the way for psychedelics, for psilocybin, which is happening next, which is the most important thing that's happening to society.
I'm so excited.
in our lifetime.
I'm very excited. It's one of the books on my to read list is How to Change Your Mind. We had a gentleman come speak during one of our symposiums for school. I think his name was Justin Strickland. Sorry if I messed that up if he is ever out there. He was a really cool dude from Johns Hopkins, and they are doing killer stuff with psilocybin right now, which I think is going to be awesome. So he got us really fired up about it, and I went home, I bought the book because he was telling us about it, and I haven't quite had the mental capacity. I'm giving myself like a couple months since I've graduated to just kind of be content, to work.
Yeah, and do that, and then you'll bury yourself back in the books. But that's one to definitely change your mind on, you know. Yeah. Literally. It's you know, it's funny. It will be known as the pollinization of America, which is great because of the pollinization. Yeah. You know, there's before How to Change Your Mind and after How to Change Your Mind. Yeah. And that's like a real thing. And it's cool because it's a lot of those people who I was trying to like talk to, like my parents. Yeah. I'd say like, hey guys, like this is what's good and this is where we're at and this is where we're trying to push it forward. But it took somebody like that who had been, you know, in the dietetic space and had been, you know, trying to give people wellness in different means for a long time to go at it in that way. Mm-hmm. It was very well researched. It was articulated in a really nice way. The Netflix special is really great too.
I saw that. I'm really horrible. If I watch a movie, I can never go back and read the book, even though I know the book is better than the movie. I just can't. I need like the suspense of not knowing what's next. Yes. To keep me going, even if it's a book like How to Change Your Mind, you know. Right. I can never watch the movie first, but I've been itching to watch it.
Do you partake personally?
No. Okay. Back to the conversation we had earlier. It's something that I don't know enough to not be afraid of. Yep. And for me, I need to get to a space where I'm less afraid of it to open it up, because I know that it's a plant that would be really beneficial for me. Like I'm a wicked control freak. We talked a little bit about my anxiety, and I have no problem talking about it. Like I think it'd be really good for me. It's the reason cannabis is good for me, because it lets me like end of my day just be like, all right, anything that happened, like let's toss it to the wind. Let's throw it out. And that's the little bit of control that I'm willing to give up. Yeah. I'm trying to get better at it. But it's something that I think would be really beneficial for me in that sense. I just need to become a little bit more educated to the point where I'm not so afraid of it. Yeah. Because I think if I go into it afraid of it, I don't know if I'm going to get what I want from it. And I want to have a good experience. I don't need it to be a profound experience or anything like that, but I know that I want it to be an intentional experience if I do. Yeah. So. Let me reassure you right now. Yeah. Don't be afraid. All right. You're going to be okay. All right. And when it also at the same time, when you do feel called, you know, there's plenty of people, including me and other people who are in this network, who will support you and get you through this and I appreciate it. Yeah, and be there for you. And it'd be great. You know, there's even if we weren't available, you know, there's something called Fireside, which means that if you can take the trip, and then if you're having a bad trip, you can call this number and they'll help you, and then they'll even help you integrate afterwards if you'd like. You know, you can call them. It's toll free. Yeah. You know, there's probably something like that for cannabis as well. You know, probably. And we should definitely start promoting it to people. Yeah. But it's great what's happening with plant medicine, with the fungus, with everything that's going on. It's so important, and I think it's going to be, you know, this time, you know, in the 70s, it wasn't shepherded in the right way necessarily, just because it was just thrown on everybody, and so to not
do it as a medicinal thing. They weren't looking for that introspection. A lot of it happened along the way, and that's how we got all these beautiful stuff. But a lot of people were telling people just to get fucked up. And that was just a little bit misconstrued. Because what we really want is to just get people in the space where they can be comfortable, they can have that introspective experience and say, dang, Kelsey, why am I so stressed? I don't need to be stressed about this. Like, this day is fine. This happened. Oh, everything's all good. It gives you that, that openness. And I'll be very excited to hear about your experience, and we're there for you, when you decide to, or, if you decide to do it, because just like cannabis, it's not a silver bullet, not for everybody. It does seem like it is definitely going to be for you.
Yeah, I think so.
But it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
I've had such an awesome time talking with you today. I think that you are an absolutely incredible person who has her mind in like a very focused and right way. I'm very grateful that your program exists. I'm very grateful the way that you talk about it, and I'm super excited to see like where you go. I do honestly believe that, wherever it's going to be, I know that we're going to have the Cole sisters on, and we're going to be doing a couple of shows to get there, and that's going to be great. But like one day, I think that you're going to be in this room with me, and we're going to be talking about something super profound that you have done, within cannabis, just based on your passion and your ability to really see the true benefits of the plant.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It's great to be in the space with somebody that thinks about the plant the way that you think about the plant. I'm surrounded by a lot of great people that think the way that you think, that think the way that I think, and it's only going to make this industry go up. So
that's it. Where can people find you?
You guys can find me at Tops Farm in Maine, York, Maine.
Tops Farm in York, Maine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Going to be there probably through October, unless anything outstanding comes my way. But I'm enjoying being there right now. So
yeah,
I love my patients. Love the team that I work with. I have a Tops Farm tattoo on my finger. So
I love it.
Clearly love the people that I work with. So
yeah, that's really cool, man. That just shows me how much you do care about the people that you work with. You care about your patients. You care about what you're doing. You put it on your body. If people wanted to reach out to you personally, would that do you have a social that you'd want them to feel free not to do at the same time?
You can find me on LinkedIn. You can always search my name, Kelsey Cole. I'm also pretty responsive on Instagram. My handle is kelsey.m.cole.
Okay.
So you can find me on Instagram, ask any questions that you ever have, because I always like answering them.
Yeah.
Everybody that knows me knows that I never shut up about this, even when I'm not at work. So
well, it's great because we don't want you to shut up. We want you to keep talking about it, and we're gonna give you access to more people who are I'm sure that people are gonna reach out to you from listening to this episode and say, hey, Kelsey, you're talking about CBG, sound like a giddy up, I'm going to come into Tops Farm, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot of those experiences from that. And I can't wait to see what happens with you and what you bring to the table.
Back at ya.
Oh, I love it. We like to call it the giddy up.
It's the giddy up, that's for sure.
That's it. Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for taking the time with Kelsey and I today. It was absolutely awesome to be with her and to be with you guys. Learning about cannabis, learning about this great plant, learning about what we can do for each other. This connection and everything. Let's keep learning. Let's keep growing. Let's keep being well.